Hello everybody. So those who don't know me, my name is Bernd, or Bernd, you choose. And I want to share with you some interesting things today. The first thing I wanted to give in this little session for you is a little introduction to the Yoga Sutra. The Yoga Sutra is, you could say, one of the most important classical yogic texts out there. In terms of when it was written, this is really hard to know. Now, the Indian tradition teaches anything between 2,500 to 6,000 years ago. Modern scholarship insists it's more like 1,600 years ago. It's actually honestly impossible to tell. Even modern scholarship has no definitive ideas about Patanjali, the author, and when the text was written. Let's not worry so much about that, however. Let's instead dive right into the teachings. So the first thing I wanted to do, and this is, I admit, quite unusual, is give you a little gift, you could say. Although for some of you, you might want to fast forward this gift. Now, something I really like to do when I'm teaching on teacher trainings and retreats is help people learn to chant the Yoga Sutra. And we're going to do some of that in future sessions. But today I wanted to give you the entire second chapter, if I can remember it, as a kind of little mini meditative awareness practice. And this is a way for you to experience directly the power of the Sanskrit language in my imperfect pronunciation. I don't have the mouth and lips and tools from birth that help me to chant the language perfectly. For example, my rolled R's are not precise because my mouth won't do them that way. But it's not bad. You know, I've had Indian teachers and they have kindly said that it's pretty close. Not too bad. So the idea is for you to just listen, and what I invite you to do, it might take about 5-7 minutes. I have never actually timed it, my estimate, 5-7 minutes. I invite you to either lie down or sit up with eyes closed and just listen, take in the sounds. And I'll go through the whole second chapter, and then I'll talk more about the sutra in general. So have a listen. And I'll guide you as I would guide a meditation practice. So I'll ask you to either lie down or sit up in any comfortable, informal position and just close the eyes. And just take a moment to let everything settle down, let everything land. Just noticing what your starting point is. How do you feel sitting or lying here? What's being experienced right now? How's the body? How's your mind? How's your anxiety levels? How are your peace levels? Just overall, how do you feel right now in this very moment? If you had to give an honest answer and someone you really trusted and cared about asked you, how are you really? Take a moment to feel, and then in your mind, give the answer. And then we let all those things go and just bring the awareness into the body. The body must receive these chants, these Sanskrit lines, not the mind so much. Receive the sounds with the body. Feel the effect in the body of these mysterious sounds. And enjoy. Here we go. Settle down, relax, eyes stay closed if you can. Feel the body. And just listen. And this is only the second chapter of the 4-chapter work, the Yoga Sutra, by the Rishi, the sage, Patanjali. Atha sadhana padaha Tapahasvadhyayeshvara pranidhanani kriya yoga samadhi bhavanartha kleshatannu karanartascha avidya smita ragadvesha pinivesha klesha avidya kshetram Daresham prasuptatannu vichinno dharanam anitya shuchi dukkhanatmasu nitya shuchi sukhatma khyati ravidya drigdarshana shaktyo rekatmateva smita sukhanushayi ragaha Dukkhanushayi dveshaha svarasabhahi vidushopi samarudhopi niveshaha te pratiprasavaheyaha sukshmaha dhyana heyastadvrittayaha kleshamulaha karma shayo drishta janma vedaniyaha satimule tadvipako jatya yurbhogaha dehlada paritapa phalaha punya hetutvat parinamatapa sanskara dukkhair guna vritti virodha cha dukkhameva sarvam vivekinaha heyam dukkham anagatam drashtadrashyayoho samyogo heya hetuhu prakasha kriya sthiti shilam bhutendriyatmakam bhoga pavargartham drishyam vishesha lingamatra lingani guna parvani drashta drishimatraha shuddhopi pratyayanupashyaha tadartha eva trisyasyatma kritartham pratinashtam apyanashtam taranya sadharanatvat swasvami shaktyoho svarupo palabdhi hetuhu samyogaha tasya heturavidya tadabhavat samyoga bhavo hanam tadrishehi kaivalyam vivekakyati raviplavahanopayah tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi pragya yoganganushtana dashuddhikshaye jnana diptira vivekakyate Yama niyamasana pranayama pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhayushtabangani ahimsa satyasteya brahmacharya parigraha yamaha jati desha kala samayana vachinnaha sarva bhauma mahavratam shaucha santosha tapaha svadhyayeshvara pranidhanani niyamaha Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam Vitarka hingsa dayaha kritakarita numodita lobha krodha moha purvaka mridu madhyati mata dukkha jnana nanta phala iti pratipaksha bhavanam Shaucha santosha tapaha svadhyayeshvara pranidhanani niyamaha Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam Vitarka hingsa dayaha kritakarita numodita lobha krodha moha purvaka mridu madhyati mata dukkha jnana nanta phala iti pratipaksha bhavanam ahingsa pratisthayam tatsannidhau vairatyagaha satya pratisthayam kriya phala shrayatvam asteya pratisthayam sarvaratnopasthanam brahmacharya pratisthayam viryalabha aparikrahasthairye janmakatanta sambodha shauchat svanga jugupsa parera samsargaha sattva shuddhi saumanasyaika griyendriya jayatma darshana yogatvanicha santoshadanuttamaha sukhalabha kayendriya siddhira shuddhikshaya tapasaha svadhyaya dishtatevata samprayogaha samadhi siddhirishvara pranidhanat sthira sukhamasanam prayatna shaitilyananta samapatipyam tato dvangdvanabhigataha Tasmin sati shvasa prashvasayor gati vichhedaha pranayamaha Bhahyabhyantara sambhavrittir desha kala sankhyapihi paridrishto dirgha sukshmaha Bhahyabhyantara vishaya kshepi chaturtaha Tattaha kshiyate prakasha varanam Tarana sucha yogyata manasaha Svavishaya samprayoge chittasya svarupanukara Ivendriyanam pratyaharaha Tattaha parama vashyatendriyanam Iti patanjala yoga darshane sadhana padaha om. Keep the eyes closed for a moment. And just feel how things are for you at the end of this. Experiencing the body. Has anything changed? Did you feel anything in the body? Did you feel anything change and shift and work and play or move? What happened? Maybe nothing happened. And whenever you're ready, you can open the eyes, and I'll talk to you some more about what just happened and about the Sutra in general. Welcome back. So the first thing that happened for those keen scholars among you, I did repeat 2 of the lines once. See if you caught that. I'm not going to re-record it because I want this to be very natural and organic. But it's quite interesting, how suddenly I found myself on mouth repeating the lines, which of course is no problem. But if you caught that, well done. We were talking near the end, just after we heard about the 8 limbs of yoga, I suddenly found myself chanting the same lines twice. So, I find chanting the Yoga Sutra a very powerful experience myself. I find that the act of chanting, which I do every morning in my own practice, these lines, is quite deepening. My own teacher, one of my primary teachers, Gregor Mele, insisted that chanting these lines and learning them was a way of making a kind of communion, you could say, with the tradition, and particularly with the Rishi, the sage Patanjali, the wonderful yogi who composed these words, or compiled perhaps is a better word. Anyway, I'll get into that in a moment. It's very interesting when you make that part of your practice, when you make it a kind of gradual task of learning these lines, you begin to feel something. I do myself feel a connection to this tradition when I chant these lines. I feel like I'm tuning into the wellspring of what I'm doing, and therefore I'm not really at any risk when I practice of becoming confused why I practice, of becoming lost in purely body culture or some kind of a secondary reason for practice. I like to stay on task. I like to stay on the path, pardon the pun, of yoga without too much distraction. So my morning routine involves this, for those who are interested, how my morning might look. First thing, I rise and I practice right away Nauli Kriya. This is a particular abdominal movement exercise given by the yogic tradition designed to stimulate energy, improve digestion, and just really wake you up. And I'm doing that first thing in the morning. Then I clean my nose using Jalaneti, which is a kind of nose cleaning technique by the yogis to kind of clean everything up in the morning. After feeding my dogs, I do just a few postures, yogic postures to get into my body, and then I sit and chant that. I've learned the first 2 chapters of the sutra in this way. I'll learn the other 2 when it comes time to. It's not really any need yet, as they're quite advanced in the teachings, but the first 2 chapters are teachings I do work with myself in my own practice, so hence those 2 chapters I am chanting. So the kind of practicalities and getting to know my weird 4 a.m. So it's 4:30 now. I'm getting up later than I used to. My weird 4:30 in the morning routine. Let's move that to one side and get back to the actual teachings. And again, I don't want to really go into too much depth in this session. This is just an introduction to the Sutra. What I will say about the Yoga Sutra is that it is incredibly important. If you're practicing any kind of yoga that includes the body and the breath and the kind of yoga that you probably know, then it's really based on the foundation of Patanjali. Patanjali gives us this beautiful kind of, you could say, roadmap for the whole path of the various stops along the way, where we're trying to get to, the various obstacles that will come up, the various things that are underpinning our lives as we try to practice, how your subconscious manifests in the world. All these things are covered in this really beautiful, very concise text. The author Patanjali has a particular story around him that I really, really like. Now, the story goes, this is the very short, quick form. The story goes that there was, we're talking many thousands of years ago, on Mount Kailash, where the god Shiva was living. Remember, this is a story, you don't have to take it literally, although if you want to, you can. The god Shiva was teaching his wife Parvati yoga. And in fact, he was teaching her these very teachings of the Yoga Sutra. A lot of teachings within the yogic traditions are actually as a form of a dialogue between Shiva and Shakti, the kind of primary pure consciousness force, you could say, and the energy of life. That's what the symbolism is there. So in this story, Shiva was giving Shakti or Parvati these teachings, and high up on a mountaintop and hidden behind a bush, wait for it, was the 1,000-headed serpent of infinity, Ananta. And this 1,000-headed serpent was just kind of hiding out, waiting behind the bush, thinking, no one's noticing that I'm here. I mean, come on, really? 1,000-headed serpent, a little bit conspicuous maybe. So he's waiting behind the bush, avidly listening to these teachings, eavesdropping on these powerful teachings of yoga. Teachings finished, and Ananta, in great excitement, went to slither away and practice what he'd just heard, ready to really dive into yoga. And as he was about to move away, he suddenly heard the voice of the god Shiva saying, "Ananta, stop." And the serpent was terrified. Because the god Shiva is not typically known for his leniency and his softness, to put it mildly. This is a god who cut off his own son's head, without realizing it was his son, to be honest. And he did put the head back later in the form of an elephant head. Hence we have Ganesh. He also killed the Indian Cupid, Kama, for daring to loosen an arrow at him. So I'm chuckling, but these are really wild stories, and it just kind of goes to show he's not known for his softness, this god. The king of the yogis, you could say, that the god of the yogis, Shiva, is not known for his softness. So poor Ananta was completely terrified, thinking, "Oh my god, I'm going to die." And he said to the god, "Shiva, please don't kill me. Please, I'm so sorry, please don't kill me." And the god said, to Ananta's horror, "No, I will kill you. But that's not your punishment." What? What do you mean? What? Your punishment is going to be that I will kill you and cause you to be reborn as a sage called Patanjali. And your punishment is that you will be the world's first yoga teacher. And it happened like that, according to one of the various mythological sources of where Patanjali came from. So we have the 1,000-headed serpent becoming human in the form of Patanjali, teaching these teachings. Now, you don't have to believe that. In fact, if you totally believed it, you're not sure if that's such a good idea. But it's a beautiful story and lots of hidden symbolism there you can reflect on. And it's a nice introduction anyway to Patanjali, to the Yoga Sutra that he taught. Patanjali is widely considered in the Indian tradition as the master of body, speech, and mind, because there are 3 texts from totally different disciplines attributed to him. Yeah. So Patanjali not only composed the Yoga Sutra, which, by the way, is considered really one of the primary Indian texts on the mind. Yes, the Yoga Sutra deals with the mind, not so much the body. The body is, of course, employed because the body is part of the mind, but it's mostly about the mind. You could say it's a very ancient system of psychology, even. So you have the master of the mind, Yoga Sutra. He also wrote a text called the Charaka Samhita, which is still, to date, one of the most important Ayurvedic texts. Yeah, anyone who studies Ayurveda at a university level in India, and I assume probably in the West, although I haven't checked, would be studying this text. It's a very, very important Ayurvedic text. And Ayurveda, for those who don't know, is the Indian medical science. And it's, of course, all about the body. So, the master of the body. And the final text that is attributed to Patanjali is the great text on Sanskrit grammar, which name escapes me now. It'll probably come to me in a moment. But we have this third text is really the primary, even today, source texts on grammar, on Sanskrit grammar, and on how to correctly use language. Therefore, he is known as the master of speech. Now, there is some controversy in Indian circles around whether or not actually it's the same Patanjali. Various modern scholars insist there were 3 different Patanjalis. The Indian tradition is vehemently staying with the view that he did write, the same guy did write those 3 texts. So, up to you. Once again, you can think about it. The thing that stresses some people out is these texts were probably written a few hundred years apart. And yet the Indian view is that Patanjali was actually an immortal sage. And he's still actually around. Once again, believe or don't believe, up to you. But I like to teach you the tradition as a tradition teaches itself, rather than my view on it. So, I think it's probably a good time to end. Yes, the text is called the Mahapashya. There you go, I believe. The great commentary. So, if I have that wrong, I'm sorry. I purposely do not use any kind of notes when I'm teaching, by the way. That's one of my styles of teaching. I believe an experience is far better to teach in a more fresh way, rather than sitting there staring at notes. I'm giving you everything from here and from my own experience and from my own learning. So, that might mean occasionally funny things creep in, but I will always try to catch them and let you know when I've done that. It's more authentic and more real, and we have a real connection here, you and I, rather than just me sitting on some weird throne with a bunch of texts next to me that I'm reading from. Okay, we'll leave it there for today, and I do wish you all well. We'll meet again soon. Thank you, everyone.